What if the approval you've spent your life chasing was never necessary in the first place? Have you ever stopped to wonder why you feel pressured to constantly improve, achieve, or convince others of your value? You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. In 11 words, Maya Angelou gave us permission. Permission to stop performing, to stop shrinking, to stop auditioning for a place where we already belong. Her words are not just comfort. They are a quiet revolution. They challenge every narrative that told us we had to earn our place. Every whisper that said we weren't enough, not yet. Not without more effort, not without their nod. But many of us were raised to believe otherwise. We were taught that worth is conditional, that love is a transaction, that if we want to be seen, heard, or accepted, we must first achieve, impress, or convince. We learn to measure our value by the reactions of others, by applause, likes, promotions, and permission slips handed out by people who didn't create us and cannot define us. So we perform. We wear masks we don't remember putting on. We work late into the night, not just to meet deadlines, but to feel worthy of being noticed. We silence our opinions, not because we don't have them, but because we fear they'll push someone away. We water down our passions, our stories, even our laughter, just to stay in a room we don't even like. All because someone else holds the stamp of approval. And it becomes so automatic that we stop noticing we're doing it. Approval becomes oxygen. We breathe it in with every decision we make. And when we don't get it, when someone dismisses us, doubts us, critiques or ignores us, it feels like suffocating. Like maybe we really aren't enough after all. But the truth? You never needed their approval in the first place. Not to be worthy, not to belong, not to live freely, boldly, and with peace. Because worth, true, unshakable worth, isn't handed to you. It's something you were born with. Something you carry whether they see it or not. So, today, we press pause on that cycle. Let's dig deeper. Meanwhile, from our earliest years, many of us are conditioned, not just by parents or teachers, but by the culture itself, to perform. We're taught, both directly and indirectly, that being lovable and being valuable are privileges we must earn. It starts with small things. Being rewarded for good behavior, being praised for high grades, being admired for how well we follow the script. And while encouragement can be healthy, somewhere along the way, it becomes distorted. We begin to believe that we are only as worthy as what we produce. That if we're not impressing, we're invisible. That if we're not winning, we're losing. Slowly but powerfully, these messages take root. We start to internalize ideas like, you are only as good as your achievements. You matter only if others think you do. You'll be loved when you finally become more than you are. But pause for a moment. Who wrote those rules? Who decided those were to be the terms? And more importantly, who gave them the authority to define your worth? Think deeply. What would you say to someone who violated your trust, and yet still expected you to still prove your value to them? What would you say to a child who honestly believed that they had to earn their family's love by never making mistakes, never falling short, never simply being human? It would break your heart, wouldn't it? And yet, that's exactly how many of us speak to ourselves. We become our own harshest critics. Our inner dialogue turns into an endless performance review. We hustle to be liked. We say yes when we want to say no. We shapeshift shrink, and silence ourselves in the hope that maybe, just maybe, someone will finally say, "You're enough." But let's be honest. When we tie our self-worth to external approval, to applause, attention, praise, we sign up for a life of anxiety. We live in fear. Fear of failing. Fear of not measuring up. Fear of disappointing others so deeply that we disappear altogether. And that fear, it's not natural. It's not who you really are. It's learned, absorbed, conditioned. And what's learned can be unlearned. You are not here to meet other people's expectations. You are not a product to be packaged, pitched, and sold. You're a human being, and your worth is not up for debate. Let's come back to Maya Angelou's powerful statement. You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. At first glance, it might sound like a kind affirmation, something you'd stick on a fridge magnet or repeat in front of the mirror. But this quote carries weight. Let's take it apart and sit with what it really means. You, not your resume, not your status, your follower count, or your relationship, not the titles you've earned or the roles you've been handed. Just you, stripped of expectations, free from performance. Your essence, unpolished, untouched by achievement or validation. Alone, without the props, without the applause, without needing to be filtered, fixed, or reshaped. This part invites you to imagine yourself without the layers you've added for survival. The people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the need to impress are enough. Not will be enough when you achieve something big. Not could be enough once you're healed. Are, right now, as you are. Full stop. This isn't about pretending you don't want to grow or succeed. Growth is beautiful, but there's a difference between growing from a place of worth and growing to earn worth. Angelou's words remind us, we don't become worthy, we already are. Psychologically, this speaks to a deeper truth many of us weren't taught. The difference between self-worth and self-esteem. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, and it's often tied to outcomes. If you're doing well, you feel good. If you fail, it dips. It's fragile, performance-based, and often external. But self-worth? That's something else entirely. Self-worth is innate. It doesn't move when people praise or criticize you. It doesn't shrink in the face of failure. It's a quiet, unshakable knowing that you have value. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And here's where it gets real. Most of us have been taught to chase approval, to earn our place. We strive, perfect, edit, and over-deliver, not because we're thriving, but because we're trying to be enough. And somewhere along the way, we forget what it feels like to just be. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt peace in just being? Not working, not winning, not performing, just existing, breathing, sitting with yourself and thinking, this is enough. If that feels foreign, that's okay. Many of us weren't shown how to rest in our own worth. But imagine what would change if you truly believed you didn't have to earn love, respect, or belonging. Now imagine what would shift if you stopped needing the world's permission and started giving it to yourself. Let's explore how that mindset can transform everything. Your work, your relationships, and most importantly, the way you see yourself. So let's rewire that thinking. You're not a product. Somewhere along the line, we started confusing our humanity with our output. We began measuring our worth in productivity, packaging ourselves like brands, performing like machines, and chasing approval like it was oxygen. But you are not a brand. You are not a machine. You are not a transaction to be polished, marketed, or evaluated. You are a human being, layered, complex, and beautifully unfinished. You carry stories, contradictions, talents, scars, laughter, and longing. That is what makes you real. And real isn't always neat or convenient. Real isn't always liked. But real is where you'll find peace. Still, so often, we shrink. We edit ourselves to fit the expectations handed to us by our parents, our culture, our friends, and yes, even by the invisible metrics of social media. We present a curated version of ourselves, hoping for applause. We tweak our dreams, silence our opinions, hide our pain, all in hopes that someone, somewhere, will say, "You're enough now." Why do we do this? Because approval feels like safety. Being liked feels like love. Being celebrated feels like belonging. And we're wired for connection. But here's the paradox. The more we chase approval, the further we drift from who we really are. The performance becomes the prison. The mask becomes suffocating. And the self, your truest self, starts to disappear under layers of pretense. So how do we find our way back? Let's make this practical. Here are 3 shifts you can make, not just to stop seeking approval, but to start living in alignment with your real self. 3 ways to stop seeking their approval. Reflect before you react. This is about slowing down. It's about catching yourself in the act of overgiving, overperforming, or over-apologizing, and asking the deeper question beneath the behavior. The next time you find yourself striving, people-pleasing, or bending yourself into shapes that feel unnatural, pause and ask, am I doing this from love? Or from a fear of not being enough? That one question can reframe your entire day. Maybe you said yes to a request that drained you, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't want to seem selfish. Maybe you posted that picture or shared that story, not to express yourself, but to be validated. When you become conscious of your motivations, you take your power back. It's not the action itself that needs to change. It's the why behind it. Act from alignment, not anxiety. Do the thing because it's true for you, not because you're trying to earn someone's approval. Shift your inner dialogue. Most of the approval seeking doesn't start with the world. It starts inside your own head. The voice in your mind, that relentless commentator, often echoes old messages from your past. Messages like, you're only lovable when you're successful. You're only worthy when you're productive. You'll finally be enough when you achieve something extraordinary. And without realizing it, you begin to believe those words. But what if you interrupted that voice? What if, when your mind says, I'll feel proud once I lose weight, you said back, my body is already worthy of kindness? Or when you hear, I'll matter when someone finally chooses me, you gently remind yourself, I don't need to be chosen to be valuable. I already belong to myself. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending you don't want to grow. It's about shifting your starting point. You don't have to earn love like it's a reward. You are loved. You are already enough, not someday, but today. It may feel foreign at first. It may feel like a lie. But with repetition, it starts to settle in. it becomes a new baseline, a new home. Detach from external validation. This one is hard because, let's be honest, we all want to be seen. We all want to be appreciated. It's natural to desire connection and recognition. The problem isn't wanting to be seen. The problem is needing to be seen in order to feel whole. When your identity becomes fused to applause, praise becomes addictive, and criticism becomes devastating. You start outsourcing your self-worth to the world around you, and that's a game you'll never win. So ask yourself this: if no one clapped for me, would I still be proud of who I am? Would you still sing the song, write the story, raise the child, show up with kindness, pursue the dream, if nobody was watching? Would you still be you, even in silence? If your answer feels shaky, that's not failure. That's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of change. You don't have to detach overnight, but start noticing when your joy depends on someone else's reaction. Start recognizing when your worth feels conditional. That's the moment to pause, breathe, and remind yourself. Your value is not up for vote. Your self-worth isn't disappearing. It's waiting to be remembered. And as you remember it, you start to live differently. You show up with more presence. You say no with more confidence. You dream with more courage. You begin to feel free. Not because the world approves, but because you do. Let's bring this closer to home. Not in theories or quotes, but in quiet, often unnoticed moments of real life, where enough is already being lived. Think of the single mother who rises before the sun, not for applause, but because her children need her. She packs school lunches with tired hands, navigates a long day of work, then comes home to help with homework and listen to bedtime stories. No awards, no audience, just love wrapped in exhaustion. Isn't that a form of heroism we rarely acknowledge? Society often overlooks her because she's not chasing prestige or fame, but her daily sacrifices are a living testament to devotion. That's what enough looks like in motion. Now imagine the student who struggles in school. She rewrites the same assignment 3 times, not because she lacks intelligence, but because she's determined. The grade she finally earns may not land her on the honor roll, but it represents perseverance, resilience, and inner strength. There's no cheering crowd, but does that make her any less victorious? Isn't that quite triumph just as worthy of recognition, even if no one is watching? Or consider the artist who keeps creating even when no one's buying her work or liking her posts. Her art isn't performative. It's an expression of self, of joy, pain, memory, and imagination. She doesn't need an audience to validate her creativity. She's not driven by approval. She's driven by something deeper: presence, expression, truth. Isn't that the very essence of enoughness? Doing what you love, not for validation, but because it's who you are. And what about the person who walks into therapy and sits across from someone ready to unravel years of trauma? No one sees this battle. There are no trophies for confronting pain, no social media highlight reel for breaking generational cycles. Yet they return, week after week, to face what others might avoid. That kind of courage doesn't trend, but doesn't it deserve to? Isn't this the rawest form of bravery? These are not just acts. These are testaments to self-worth in action. None of these people are chasing praise, likes, or external approval. They are simply choosing to show up, fully, honestly, imperfectly. And That is enough. Approval didn't make those moments meaningful. The meaning was already there. In the intention, in the effort, in the heart behind each step. So let me ask you some hard but loving questions. Would you still show up for your dream if no one applauded? Would you still speak your truth if no one nodded in agreement? Would you still take the next step? Not because someone told you to, but because something inside you whispered, "Keep going." Would you dare to believe that your quiet efforts matter, even when no one else notices? This is where Maya Angelou's words echo with power. You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody, not when you land the job, not when you look perfect, not when you win the award. Now, as you are, with the tired eyes, the unsure heart, the imperfect path, and maybe the person who most needs to believe that today is you. Remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. Take a breath, a deep one. Let it soften your shoulders and steady your heartbeat. Let it meet the version of you that's tired of pretending, tired of striving, tired of wondering if you're enough. Now, let this truth sink in. You are not broken. You are becoming. We live in a world obsessed with speed and perfection. Everywhere you turn, there's a voice whispering that you should be farther along by now, that you should have figured it all out, that you should be more confident, more successful, more healed. But here's the quiet, radical truth. You are not behind. You are exactly where your soul needs to be for your next unfolding. Growth is not a straight line. Healing is not a checklist. Becoming who you really are is not something you rush through. Life will stretch you, break you open, and reassemble you in ways that are both beautiful and painful. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're growing. You are not less than. Not because your path looks different. Not because your timeline doesn't match someone else's. Not because you carry trauma or fears or dreams you haven't yet dared to speak aloud. Your worth is not comparative. It isn't determined by achievements, popularity, or how perfectly you perform. And no, you are not unworthy just because someone couldn't love you the way you needed. Sometimes, the people we crave validation from the most are the ones still battling their own unseen wars. They never learned how to offer unconditional love. Not because you're hard to love, but because they never received that kind of love themselves. Their blindness to your light does not dim its shine. Your value is not diminished by someone else's inability to recognize it. Let that sink into the places where rejection still stings. You don't have to keep proving yourself. Not your beauty, not your brilliance, not your depth or your resilience. You don't have to constantly explain why you deserve to be here. Because you do. Your worth isn't something you perform. It's something you carry. And that worth lives in your presence. It lives in your everyday courage. The kind that no one claps for. It's in the way you keep showing up, even when you're unsure. It's in the way you care deeply, even after being hurt. It's in the quiet battles you fight, the boundaries you're learning to set, the small moments of peace you're beginning to claim. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real, to be whole, to be evolving. When you begin to live from that truth, that your value is innate, not earned, everything changes. You stop chasing approval like oxygen. You stop shrinking to fit expectations. You begin moving through life with clarity, with softness, with power. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're rooted in something unshakable. You are not broken. You are becoming. And becoming is messy. Becoming is sacred. Becoming is the bravest thing you will ever do. So take another breath, and another. Sit with this truth as it gently replaces the old lies. You don't have to rush. You don't have to strive. You don't have to earn your place. You have nothing to prove. And yet, when you stop trying to prove yourself, you'll find you have everything to give. Because self-worth isn't some prize waiting at the end of your effort. It's not something someone else can grant you. It's not even something you need to build. Self-worth is something you remember. And in remembering it, you return to yourself. Whole. Enough. Becoming. Was there a moment in this video that made you pause, even for a second? Maybe a sentence, a question, or a quiet realization that felt like it was speaking directly to you. We'd love for you to share that in the comments. Your reflection might be exactly what someone else needs to feel seen. Every video on this channel is a soft invitation to look inward, to slow down, and to find clarity in a noisy world. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to return to yourself. Because you, just as you are enough.